What's up, friends? Welcome to my channel where we're doing music covers, original music, album reviews, song reviews, a little social commentary here and there, whatever the day calls for. Today we're going to be discussing a very talked about album right now, the newly released NORTHLANE album called Obsidian. Yeah, I've had my ups and downs with this band, so I will probably be pretty objective in this review. Not a huge fanboy, not a hater. I really got into them back when Singularity was out. I discovered them like many others did with the Quantum Flux song and video. Um, Ordered that album. Thought it was pretty good from start to finish. I thought a lot of the deep cuts were some of the best ones on that album. The closer, Aspire, was really, really good. Scarab, another really good one. There that album had a very good mix of like heavy, kind of upbeat moments with some like melodic post-hardcore kind of moments, and they did some breakdowns, they did some genty stuff. It's a pretty solid piece of music, I would say. And then the vocalist they had on that album departed, and Marcus came in, and they did the Node album. It was a pretty noticeable shift to a lighter kind of metal, more atmospheric, focused, futuristic sounding kind of metal. And that album was very good too. So it's kind of where they went from there, where they kind of started to lose me. I found their album Mesmer to be pretty lazy. They kind of like were getting into just a rut of just making just lazy gent songs. Nothing really noticeable on the guitar. I definitely noticed that the guitar work just kind of became less interesting, and then that led us to their last album, Alien, which I thought was just awful. Like I hated it, and I just been kind of off them since then. They came out with the song Clockwork. I really, really liked that one. And that was like, I think almost like a year ago now. But they included that on this album here, which I think was a good move. Um, then, as far as what I've heard leading up to this album, the only other song I heard was Plenty. I reviewed it on this channel. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I found it kind of average, kind of back to the Mesmer state of just kind of, it's not bad and it has cool parts, but as a whole, it kind of felt like what somebody would think of when if they were trying to make the argument that this brand of metalcore was getting stagnant. Like, it was just very, just a standard kind of song. But it wasn't bad, but we're going to do a track by track review. This album is pretty long. So when I went into this, I was just like, I'm going to take every song at face value. I'm going to forget what the rest of their career was like and just judge this stuff on its own merits. I went into this album kind of feeling like there's a chance I might not like it. It's because of the last one. But I was also open to the possibility that they would surprise me and make something really great. So, did they surprise me here? Yes and no. It's definitely a million times better than Alien, and probably Mesmer as well. I don't really feel like it got them back to where they were when I really, really got into them, but there's definitely some great stuff to be found here. So there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to talk about it as quick as I can because there's just a lot of material here. It's a very long album, so let's get into it. Track number 1 is called Clarity. It begins with some very enjoyable electronics. This is probably the most electronic album I've ever heard from these guys, and it's definitely their lightest album in terms of how heavy it is. This is definitely more of a industrial rock kind of album with some heavy parts, but they really surprised me here on this song because they did some upbeat thrashy parts, and I haven't heard them do anything like that since the Singularity days. Um, and there's actually some riffs here, some parts where the guitars stand out, and it's been a while, but I will say the guitars on this album are not produced very well, and that's not unique to this album. Even on like Node and Mesmer and Alien, they have like just this weird production choice where they got kind of loud vocals. I do like what they do with their drum sound on these albums, and it's right where it needs to be in the mix too. But the guitars, it's almost like there's like a conscious effort to have them take the back seat in the mix and in what they do. This song here is pretty long for an opener. It's longer than it needs to be. But as far as openers go, they've done better and they've done worse, and I already like it better than the last couple albums, so, it could have been chopped in half probably, but it's not bad. Number 2 is Clockwork, which I already said. I mean, that's a great track. I'm glad they included it here. It's just a solid, it's just everything that they do nowadays working perfectly. Great catchy chorus. Everything's memorable. The industrial synthy elements sound great here. Clockwork is a very staple song for this era of NORTHLANE, and I can't say enough good things about it. It's definitely a top track for this album, even though, it's been around a while already. So, number 3, Echo Chamber. I remember seeing this name here and there, so I think they already released this one prior to the album's release, but man, have these guys changed. I mean, this is an industrial alt-rock kind of song, and it works. It has a very futuristic feel, as they have been shooting for a while now. Marcus really flexes his sing-scream abilities here. It feels very modern, yet kind of 90s at the same time, so it's a solid track. I like this one. Number 4, Carbonized. This song alternates between kind of forgettable and sometimes cringy rap metal verses with a pretty generic chorus. It's definitely the weakest track so far. Number 5, Abomination. This is a song led by its electronic elements. And that's understandable, because if you strip them out of this, you get a pretty boring and lazy alt metal song. There's just nothing really that grabs me on this one either. There are parts here where they are kind of like trying to recreate the feel of Clockwork and fall short. Next, Plenty. I already reviewed this one. Like I said, it's pretty run of the mill in the soundscape of this genre and how many bands and how saturated it is. But I'll recap some of the things I said in that review. It has some Tesseract sounding moments that are really good. The chorus is more memorable than some of the choruses here. And, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a top track, but it's a good one. Number 7, Is This a Test? This is yet another 90s industrial rock flavored track. The song has some really cool parts and also some boring parts. It's definitely more enjoyable than Carbonized and Abomination. It comes off more as an interlude piece, so I kind of got mixed feelings on this one. Number 8, Zen, but spelled with an X. X-E-N. This is another song where it has some cool parts, but in all, this is a song where the electronics try to compensate for an average rock song. It's very middle of the road. The most interesting part of this is the moody electronic piece at the end, and I really like that part. So, just on the strength of that, I'll say this is a pretty good song, but definitely not a top track. Number 9, Cipher. This is yet another song with cool parts, but overall kind of boring. Not much to say about this one, but maybe it'll grow on me later. But, yeah, at this point, I'm struggling to see why there's just so much, why this album is so long, because even though, they're kind of branching out from what they typically do with, a lot of electronic stuff, a lot of these songs kind of have a samey feel to it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like at this point in the album, I've heard a lot of cool parts, a lot of choruses that are great, but I've also heard a lot of boring parts too. Um, and just kind of a lot of getting annoyed with these background buzzy sounding guitars just zeroing along, just zeros. And this album has as many zeros as an Amir album, but it doesn't really come out and punch you in the face because of the production. It's just kind of yeah, the guitars are definitely the back seat of this album. Not a very guitar centric band. So moving on, number 10, Nova. When I first did the analysis for this album, when I got to this point in the album, I actually fell asleep. Given it was really late, and I was trying to get it done, but yeah, I fell asleep. So these last few songs, I did the rest of the analysis on a different day, and I'm glad I did because this song is really good. I really, really enjoyed this one. There's no other song on the album like this one. There's some very much needed variety here. Marcus sounds amazing here. There's lots of interesting sounds. Not all through the song, but there's little bits and pieces in what Marcus is doing where I hear like some Linkin Park. And granted, I'm not really the biggest fan of Linkin Park, but it works in this song. This song doesn't sound like them, like Linkin Park, but just some of the things that Marcus does reminds me of Chester. And this was like just a really, really good song, and this is definitely one I'll be replaying. Top track. Definitely a top track. Number 11, Inamorata. Inamorata. Hopefully one of those is right. The late 90s industrial tinged alt rock vibes are strong here. We got a great chorus and solid track. Number 12, Obsidian. This is the title track. And I would say that alongside Carbonize and Abomination, this is a more disposable one. It just kind of exists. And on an album this bloated, this really didn't stand out or feel like it served any grand purpose to me. It was just kind of there. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say about this one. And then we got our closer, Dark Solitaire. This song has some great drumming in it, some complex polyrhythms, electronic atmosphere. It closes out on a pretty high note. It's still kind of the same old thing that you're hearing throughout the course of this album, but it's done a bit better here than some of the other songs. There's more moments in here where the instrumentation is taking center stage as opposed to just playing a back seat to either Marcus or the electronics. But yeah, it's not a bad way to close this album out. So, let's see. Let's summarize this. You know, a lot of people are speaking pretty highly of this album, and I'm not exactly seeing what everybody else is seeing with this. Like I'm hearing a lot of people say that this is a huge breath of fresh air in the scene. And I'm not sure about that analysis because there are a lot of generic moments here. There are a lot of boring moments here, but there are a lot of great moments here as well. The top tracks of this album, Clockwork, Echo Chamber is really good, and Nova is really good as well. I'd say some noteworthy tracks, Clarity, you know. Is This a Test is definitely interesting. That's a very complained about song in some of the reviews I've read for this album, and I don't think, I mean, I think there's other songs on here that I didn't care for more than this one. It was interesting. I kind of see it as kind of like an interlude piece. And yeah, the closer's definitely noteworthy too. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. And that 7 out of 10 is definitely carried on like these specific songs. The lowest points of the album, I would say, are Carbonized, Abomination, and the title track. And on an album this bloated, it probably would have benefited with it maybe not being there. or maybe being bonus tracks or B-sides for something later. I mean, this album is long as shit for what they're doing here. So yes, 7 out of 10. I definitely think it's a huge step up from Mesmer and Alien. So while I'm not super excited about this band again, they're definitely back on my radar, and I'll definitely be looking at what they do next. And that's all I really got to say about the album. Marcus is definitely the star of the show here, but I mean the drummer is really good too. So if I was to say anything about what they do moving forward, just maybe have more heavy moments and more moments where the guitars kind of take more of a center stage. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. 7 out of 10. Just my opinion. I know a lot of people were really liking this, really digging it, so that's all I really gotta say about it. So until next time, thanks for watching.